Now, we're still going through the book by Titus Livius or Livy, the History of Rome, or as the actual title is From the Founding of the City. And then the book is indeed a collection of books, and throughout in the books, Livy tells us the history of Rome from the beginning until the reign of Augustus. Now, in this video, I'm going to explain some more about something I mentioned or I talked about in the previous video, and that is the similarities between the birth of Cyrus the Great, Romulus, and Moses. But in this video, I'm going to focus on Cyrus the Great and Romulus, and I want to give you specific points about their birth that are so similar. It is uncanny. It is what is the word? It makes you wonder, like, why is this so? Was it a similar story that ended up being told differently by different societies, or is just coincidence? Now, here are the specific points that I find to be very interesting. Regarding Cyrus the Great, my source is, of course, Herodotus histories. It's a book I've read and I've created videos. You can find the videos in the channel. So when we read Herodotus' book Histories, it tells us about the birth of Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great was a son of a daughter of the king of the Medes, and the king of the Medes then was a guy by the name of Astyages. Now, Astyages had a daughter by the name Mandane, and he had this weird dream about Mandane, and he didn't like the dream, and he was worried that the dream will come true. And what the dream really meant is that the children from Mandane were going to be, or a child, not children really, but a child from Mandane was going to be a great, powerful person in the world. And he didn't like that because he wanted the powerful person to come from one of his sons. So he did some things to try to prevent that. Now, Mandane ends up giving birth to Cyrus. Now, we start from there. Cyrus's mother, Mandane, was a daughter of a king of the Medes, the Astyages. I've mentioned that. Now, let's come to Romulus. Romulus is a son of a daughter of another king. Romulus' mother was Rhea Silvia, and Rhea Silvia was the daughter of the king of Alba Longa, who went by the name of Numitor. Now, Numitor came from the line of rulers whose origin was the joining together of forces between Aeneas, who came from Troy, and Latinus, who was a ruler in what we know today as Italy, some parts of it. So these two people came together. Aeneas marries the daughter of Latinus, and from that comes this line of rulers that comes down to Numitor. But Numitor is toppled by his brother Amulius. Amulius topples his brother and becomes the king of Alba Longa. And then Amulius, I think, kills the sons of Numitor, but then spares the daughter, Rhea Silvia. Then Rhea Silvia goes ahead to have a child, to have twins, in fact, Romulus and Remus. Now, the similarities between Cyrus and Romulus in this part is that both their mothers were daughters of kings, and both were born and were not needed to survive. They were to be killed, both of them. So it's similar. Now, let's move to another aspect of their birth. Of course, it's what I've just mentioned. Cyrus was, after birth, was supposed to be taken to the mountains and exposed to the cold and die as a baby. That did not happen. He survived. Romulus was also taken to River Tiber to be exposed to die as a baby. He also didn't die. So that is also the same or similar. Now, let's move to the next point. This is even more interesting. Cyrus is taken by a royal shepherd, a guy by the name Mithridates. Mithridates was ordered by another guy called Harpagus, who worked in the palace of Astyages. And Harpagus was told by Astyages to make sure the baby is dead. Now, Harpagus makes the mistake, and he did pay dearly for that mistake. He calls the royal shepherd, a guy who used to take care of the cattle of Astyages, and gives him that responsibility of going and killing the baby, basically. Mithridates takes the baby and he goes to the mountains, and his wife was expectant, but by reaching there, the wife had given birth to it was a stillborn, and the wife and Mithridates decide to exchange. They take the dead baby and they go present it to Harpagus and the king, of course, and they keep the baby, who ends up growing up becoming Cyrus the Great. Same thing with Romulus. Romulus is taken by a royal shepherd by the name Faustulus. Faustulus was this guy who used to take care of the king's animals, and here in this case we are talking about Amulius. And when Romulus and Remus are abandoned at the river Tiber, it is Faustulus who takes these babies and takes them to his house, and he keeps it as a secret, just like Mithridates took Cyrus and took him to his house, and together with his wife, they kept the baby. Now, Cyrus, the story used to be that Cyrus was breastfed by a female dog, and they used to say he was so tough because he was breastfed by a female dog. But it happens the way Herodotus tells the story, how it came to be that people thought Cyrus the Great was breastfed by a female dog is because the wife of the shepherd who I have mentioned, who took him to his house, used to go by the name Sino in Greek. But in the language of the Medes, that name used to be Spaka or Spaka. And when that name is translated, it translates to a female dog. And so that's how it came to be known, to be thought that, or to be believed that Cyrus the Great was breastfed by a female dog. And that's why it was very tough. Now let's come to Romulus. Romulus was breastfed by, it was said, by an animal, a she-wolf, just like Cyrus the Great. Now it also happens that the she-wolf was really a woman. Who went by the name of Larentia. And Larentia was the wife, guess who? The wife of the shepherd, the royal shepherd of Amulius. Very similar. These two are very identical, in fact. And she breastfed these twins, and the shepherd used to call her she-wolf. And that's how the story came to be told that Romulus and Remus were breastfed by a she-wolf. Now, the next one is, of course, obviously, Cyrus the Great was brought up among the shepherds. Romulus was brought up among the shepherds. And shepherds played a major role in the founding of the city of Rome. Cyrus's royal origin was discovered when he was a young man. The same case to Romulus. There is a slight difference, though. With Cyrus the Great, the discovery was done when he was maybe a teenager. He was a boy. He wasn't yet a man. For Romulus, he was grown up already. He was a young man, though, so it's not a major difference, though. But Cyrus was a little bit younger. The discovery is different, but not so much. For Cyrus, it happened that he was playing with other kids, and then they elected him to be king, and then he punished one of the kids who happened to be a son of one of the noblemen in the kingdom, and the father of that boy went and complained to the king, and when Cyrus was brought to the king for those charges, and the king suspected that he wasn't really a son of a shepherd. There was something more about him than that. That's how the discovery was made. And the guy Astyages, who had been given the responsibility, ended up paying with the life of his own son, because the king Astyages was very angry that Astyages did not carry out his instructions the way he was supposed to. Now, Romulus, as I've said, he was a young man. He was older than what Cyrus maybe was. Another point, the last one. Of course, Cyrus survived and became the founder of a great empire, Persia. And Persia ruled a huge part of the ancient world in Asia, Europe, and Africa. It was a very powerful kingdom, and it existed for a very long time. Of course, the Iran today can be said to be coming out of that ancient empire of Persia. Romulus survived and he founded a great empire, Rome, which also ruled much of the ancient world for very many years, I think thousands of years. Italy today is the home of that empire, and the Rome city is that city. So these two individuals ended up being founders of major empires. Now, looking at the similarities of their childhood is very interesting, and it leaves you with so many questions. I have to point out, though, that there are differences. There are huge differences also, which it's good that I mentioned them. For example, that Romulus was born with a twin brother. Cyrus was born alone. That's a major difference. Romulus was exposed to the river Tiber. Cyrus was taken to the mountains. So that's a difference. The order to kill Romulus and his brother came from Amulius, who was a brother of their grandfather. By then, their grandfather had been removed from being the king, and it was the brother of the grandfather who was giving these orders. But when you go to the other side of Cyrus, the person who was giving the orders was his actual grandfather, the father to the mother. So those are the differences. But anyways, even with those differences, the similarities still stood out for me. I don't know about what you think about them. You can tell me in the comments. But for me, I found it to be very interesting, and it leaves me asking questions. Of course, I might never get the answers, or maybe I'm just assuming things or seeing similarities and where it's just coincidence. I don't know.